pretentious engineer here. I know you didn't ask, but I want to show you something cool.
You're not going to get a 38 centimeter harmonic blade because you want perfect stability in this specific thoracic case.
Hey, what the heck's a harmonic blade? Well, let me show you. This is my baby. So I worked on this product with a whole bunch of other cool engineers, and this is the Harmonic 1100. And it uses piezoelectronic discs to create an ultrasonic harmonic wave down the length of this titanium blade. It, by the way, does not propagate like this. This is just marketing bogus waves. And it causes this blade to vibrate. And when you bring this in contact with tissue and compress it, that creates immense amounts of friction and heat. All the water crosslinks or all the water evaporates, the proteins crosslink and get sticky, and allows you to cut and seal without bleeding. And it is one of my favorite surgical instruments that I worked on for half a decade. And I share all this and geek out with you because this is Second Sips, where we're going to go deeper on this podcast we did with Juthika JP Paul. I always mix up her last name. And we're going to pull up cool videos. I have my tablet so I can sketch stuff. And we're going to go deep on this conversation in case you miss things from a business perspective or from a tissue effects MedTech perspective. All right, so let me share the promise I made to you right back here. We're going to fly through this edit today. It's going to be fun.
No, it's beautiful. And just to provide some context to viewers from your community and mine as well, I'm going to do everything I can to make the language of this discussion as inclusive as possible for folks who aren't in medtech spaces and who aren't in commercial excellence spaces and everything else that you have deep insights in. So I want to make sure you can still speak at your level to that context. And then I'll do a link in the description with an extra video where I can go deeper on some of this to provide context to folks. But this is going to be so fun.
Excellent. And we're going to talk about why 38 centimeters is such a funny number to Juthika. So we're going to go marker by marker. So there's these little markers up top. I'm just going to play a clip. We're going to chat about it. And I'm going to run this pretty quick today because I have some stuff happening soon, but we're going to get this in. So let's see what this first one is.
And a lasting imprint on millions who have been touched by the products you've curated. So it's my hope that by the end of this episode, our fellow MedTech collaborators will push beyond archaic corporate systems of ego, exclusion, and fear to build what you called aligned leadership cultures.
Got it. So these corporate structures of ego and fear. So if you're new to industry or if you're in college, because my audience is young to old, when you get into corporate spaces and you're trying to progress new technology, you start to learn that it's not just about engineering a new thing that helps people. Like that's at the core of what we do, but there's all this politics and mess that we have to unearth and cut through in order to actually progress the right technologies that serve customers and are financially viable for the business so the business stays alive. And what I love about Jithika is she's worked across multiple med tech leadership circles in a wide range of capacities, commercial roles, marketing roles, business development. And we get into some really rich conversation here about how to work across people and how to lead and inspire people and get into the mess to cut through that ego. So that kind of grounds the conversation. I wanted to expand on like, why did I say that in the intro? Let's jump into the next one.
Then when we were working together in J&J and I was working on an X and we were trying to figure out inclusion.
Working on an X. All right, let me pull up my tablet. Let's see. Magic screens. Other magic screen. That's from previously. So I mentioned something quickly. Me and JP crossed paths in an initiative called InX. And this is something I founded with a group of leaders. It was a cross-functional group at Ethicon. And it started because we received feedback from women engineers that they were being placed on logistical tasks, non-sexy engineering work, like planning team parties, lots of gender biases present. And we're trying to figure out like why are these exclusions occurring? And we're looking across our business, trying to find new opportunities to include. And we landed on this vision of something called InX, which is inclusion over exclusion. I just realized Clyde with a Chance of Meatballs is on over there and it's playing music, so this will be demonetized, which is fine. You're worth it. inclusion over exclusion, which we found to be the ratio of innovation. So we did a whole bunch of different activities, keynotes with various aspects of the business to have really challenging conversations to call out exclusions that existed across the boundaries of race, gender. So the first two I can think about for right now. And then finding ways to actively include others. And this all started well before George Floyd. And then when that occurred, we really led the charge from a culture perspective at Ethicon. This is work that I was super proud of. I mean, we had a beautiful team. We started to scale in X almost as an ERG or an employee resource group across multiple campuses. And this is my first time really leading in an inclusive way. And I took all these learnings from this and brought it into innovation from Japan, where I ended up having an inclusive team from the US. Oh my gosh, I don't know how to draw China. There's an exclusion right there. You got your nice little island, Japan, that's way too big. My team member, we had like Korea down here somewhere, South Korea. And I created a really novel project structure where we had 32 different innovators across a global context working together to innovate. So I actually saw the principles of INX drive global inclusive innovation, which is epic. So anyway, that's a quick tangent on what is INX. Let's jump to the next one. This is going to be fun. All right. That was the promise. Let's try here.
And I think what led,
By the way, I've edited this, heard this like 10 times. I have no idea why I placed these markers so many days ago. So I'm going to do this live. It's going to be fun.
um, and I think what led to that exit, we had an executive leader come in. He was going to be head over APAC, great guy. And like during his town hall, he was explaining that he had relocated 17 times over the course of quite a few years, moving across all these roles. And he had kind of shared it as a badge of honor and something you do. But for me, I immediately saw that as someone who didn't have control over where they actually wanted to move next in their career, and their family was being ripped across all these contexts. I've relocated 15 times in the last 3 years with 4 kids, and not all of it has been by choice. 12 of those moves were in 1 year to get to Japan because we were committed to the mission.
Okay. So let's unpack this. How the heck did I do 12 moves in 1 year to get to Japan? And let me see if I could actually remember it. So I was offered the role of director of front end innovation in February of 2020. And you may remember something that occurred in March called COVID, which killed the role. I was reoffered the role in April of 2021. A whole year later, we had just had our third child. So it was an even bigger jump for us as a family. And we were told we were going to move quickly. So we put our house on the market because there's a housing bubble. Actually went higher. I thought it was going to bust. We sold our home. We thought we'd be able to relocate quickly, but Japan never opened its borders for the Olympics as planned. So J&J put us in a furnished 2-bedroom apartment with 3 kids. So we lived like Harry Potter style with our newborn daughter in a closet. And then a few weeks into that, there was a massive bed bug infestation. So we ended up moving into a hotel, Chicago with family, back in a hotel in Cincinnati, back into the unit after multiple rounds of extermination. It's super traumatic. I used to tell my wife, like, what is it? Good night, sleep tight, don't let the bed bugs bite. Like, it was a cute thing we said our whole relationship. After navigating bed bugs for real with 3 kids, we can't even like speak that. It's like the word Voldemort. Okay. Like it's too much for us. So after that, we lived in that apartment for quite a few months. And then in November of 2021, we were given a green light to immigrate to Japan. J&J was lobbying the Japanese government to get us in on medical necessity. They had surgeons writing letters on my behalf on why it was so important I came to Japan. So we were like priority to move. So we move out of that apartment in Ohio. We go up to Chicago to see family for Thanksgiving. We're going to fly to Japan. The day before we got on our flight, or no, 2 days before our flight, they closed the borders for Omicron, which was a variant of COVID. And like the whole clock restarted. So we were just placed in Chicago. We lived with family in a hotel in a furnished apartment for another 5 months. And then from there, the borders finally opened for us in 2022. We relocated, lived in a furnished apartment for a month, found our what we thought was a forever home, moved into that, worked a job for 2.5 years with Johnson & Johnson. And then when my role was impacted and we were offered a pathway back to the US, but it was in New Jersey, we just had our fourth child in country. So we made this crazy exit to quit J&J and continue life in Japan. And we had to break our lease because J&J was on that lease. So we moved a 13th time to stay in Japan, failed at entrepreneurship after 7 months, relocated to Chicago, which is our 14th move, did it 100% ourselves in 20 days, which was wild. And then our C shipment of international goods arrived, which was our 15th relocation. And now we're living with the in-laws in a 4-generation home and trying to bridge towards a new home once I land a job or entrepreneurship takes off or whatever happens first. Anyway, that's how that was possible. And it has deeply refined my character, my resiliency, how I lead. I continued to deliver on behalf of the business and missed all that. It's changed us as a family forever. And the hope is to end up back in Japan as things stabilize on the home front. Right now, I'm a caretaker for my grandfather who's battling kidney failure. He's at like 7% kidney function. So it's the wrong time for us to move out of Chicago. But in the future, we hope to bridge towards something new. Okay, next one.
Let's just call it kick in the butt, right? There was
Yeah.
this exit, not because of what you chose, but that was going to be inevitable.
Okay. It was a kick in the butt. I chose to leave J&J. There was a little bit of a miscommunication there. Like I didn't choose for my role to become evaporated, but I was given a choice back to the US and I chose not to return. I did a contingent resignation based on a job I thought I would get within J&J, and lead times weren't favorable for us. So I had to make a formalized decision to quit if I didn't get the job based on when they could relocate us. Like I couldn't wait to find out about this Japan job, so I bet on that, and it didn't work out, and then we had to pivot and figure it out. So hopefully that's helpful context. Next one.
We always learned to fix what was broken. Like my dad, he was the original handyman for me. Like he fixed everything, and he was my original engineer. So that's how he inspired me to become an engineer. He was never an engineer by academia. He
Mhm.
became one because of his trade.
My dad was just like this. That was just something I wanted to share. My father is an engineer by trade, not by qualifications. And when I think about starting my own company down the road, going into engineering consulting, like I want to hunt for people that have picked up this knack for creating, even if they're not formally certified for it, because I don't think that we could go off on higher education. But I loved her sharing her story of her father because it immediately connected me with my roots, seeing my dad build with his hands, and that made me very hands on as I then moved into the trade of engineering. All right, next one.
This was before the GLP solutions.
Yes. GLP are what the heck does that stand for? Let's find out together. Let's pull up the magic Google. GLP meaning good laboratory practice. What? GL, is there D in there? Graduate diploma in legal practice. All right, well, she said an acronym, but what it means is it's a weight loss drug. So whatever she said, let's listen to it again.
This was before the GLP.
Okay, so GLPs anyway are weight loss drugs. And we talk a lot about obesity. She advocated heavily for obese patients and getting them surgery. There's two pathways to get bariatric surgery, which is when you're constricting. Here, let's do a little sketch up. So like here's your mouth. You have an esophagus. Food goes down there into your. Oh my gosh, this is stomach. And then you got all your. This person's very long, and then you poop out of your butt, right? So food traverses through all this. So there are ways to constrict, and I'm not an expert in this clinical space, to constrict the size of the stomach by either cutting a portion of it, putting a band around it. There's something called like a sleeve gastric bypass band. I forgot which one became standard practice, but basically by constricting the size of the stomach, you are less hungry and it can lead to dramatic weight loss. Now, some people can re-stretch their stomach out. Happened with my grandmother, which is why in the early days, there's a lot of roadblocks put in place to prevent people from getting this surgery. And Juthika talks a lot about how she lobbied the government in order to progress this standard of care because it does provide life change for people. Now, GLDPs or GLPs or whatever the acronym was are weight loss drugs that have allowed people to dramatically lose weight. I'm not yet an expert on these, but it has caused a reduction, I think, between 30 and 40% on these bariatric surgeries, which is a huge impact to people as clinicians who learned how to do this for multiple decades. But she was instrumental in this life-saving procedure. Let's keep rolling. I'm like watching the clock. I got something.
That also cultivated my compassion for them and their disease stage, because I'll tell you, like early on I was like, well, you just gotta exercise more or eat less, right? Like I carried the same biases that society carried towards these individuals.
So there is a bias. I still subscribe to a portion of that bias, so I don't have the full empathy and science understanding that she has. That weight loss is a product of what you eat and how much you move. And living in Japan, which has a much lower BMI, I've seen that. That said, there are certain people that do need help. There's genetics associated with it and lifestyle. Um, so this is an area where like I would love to lean into this dialogue more. I wanted to give JP the space to fully share how she navigated that bias and how she advocated for these procedures. Whereas I have more of a slant towards lifestyle adjustment because I have been able to lose weight over time. And living in Japan, I've seen huge shift in the quality of life based on how active they are. Americans have an incredibly sedentary lifestyle, very toxic food diet norms, and all of this put us on a fast track towards obesity, diabetes, heart disease. I see it as lifestyle is the first lever to change before progressing to pharmaceuticals or surgery. But again, that's a slant and a bias I have that she moved forward from, is what I would say.
Their son ran out of their yard and crossed the road in incoming traffic, and they could not chase their little child. And how that moment was their defining moment to say, this is enough, I've had enough. Or somebody's motivation was they wanted to be able to be healthy enough to walk their daughter down the aisle when she was getting married. So hearing these stories and having that compassion for them, and then being really curious about their situation and their goals, that allowed me to be the business leader that I have become today.
Yes, this is so beautiful. And again, I haven't lived in proximity with these individuals, but what she's getting at is when we're doing market research, when we do ethnographic research to understand the culture of clinicians or patients and the challenges they're navigating, you're looking for these qualitative stories just as much as quantitative data to drive innovation and to drive advocacy and action, which she ended up lobbying on behalf of these patients. For a parent who wants to be able to play with their children was a big part of my journey. Like I wanted to be able to run and move with my kids. I was heavier, I was having back issues. And when individuals hit this point of needing to change, we want to support them, whether it's through, holistic health and wellness, whether it's through pharmaceuticals or medical interventions through surgery. We have to lead with compassion and empathy. And that was something I really appreciated about this part of the dialogue.
As well. So ethnographic research is when you're trying to understand the ethos or the culture of a people group, and Ethicon is fantastic at it. We've made definitely there's a lot of artistry and soft science around how you understand the culture of
surgery. Ethnographic research is probably like my deepest skill set. I could geek out on this forever on all the different ways we can become proximal to clinicians, how we uncover our own biases and figure out like you're finding insights they didn't even know existed. I have pages and pages of notes in here of ethnographic research of just immersing in surgery and trying to study how surgeons interact with other healthcare providers to serve patients. I'm really excited for whatever role I get in the future to be able to leverage this gifting more. And I'd encourage you to stretch into like that empathetic ethnographic innovation kind of mindset in whatever context you live in.
But those who are like, well, my hand is small, woman, Asian, doctors, that it's not working for my glove size. I cannot reach this trigger. I cannot do this action.
I literally sat down across the table from a Japanese female surgeon who was showing me our stapler device. And she was showing all the different ways. Let me see if I can find one really quick. Echelon powered stapler endopath. Yeah, these things are around $8,000. Show me a picture. Oh, we don't want that. Although I had a friend who worked on that. It's SLR, staple line reinforcement. I could geek out on that too. That's a cool technology. Clinical benefit is interesting. It's debatable. Let me see if we can see. Show me the staples. Products. Surgical staplers. This is where Ethicon makes a lot of their bank. There we go. So this device has a battery on the back end of it and these little staplers. They form like multiple lines of staples. It's really heavy and the force to close is high. And reaching this button to release the jaws, this button opens the jaws up. This button or this trigger closes it. You'll see a small hand size will have to like choke up on the device. And this surgeon was showing me how she has to like pop the device, like throw it and catch it to be able to maneuver it. Meanwhile, she's supposed to be inside someone's body near critical structures and getting it perfectly aligned to seal without damaging other tissue. So it's very high risk and it's a really critical instrument. And we continue to develop this to work for nominal white male hand sizes. We try to go to the extremes on force to fire out into that 5th percentile, but that Japanese female hand size is still a challenge as well as other females in Asia typically. Whereas our competitor device like Signia actually works quite well from an ergonomics perspective, and they have powered closure and powered articulation. So hopefully that's helpful context. If Ethicon doesn't make it, somebody else will. All right. Let's keep rolling.
It doesn't always work that way. Like you don't always get that outcome you want. I remember during my time in Japan, I would often facilitate when upstream R&D would have engineers and executive leaders and marketing come out to the region, and they do these big show and tells with the top tier KOLs. And one of the things I wanted to challenge as soon as I came into the role was just understanding who are these KOLs and why have we continued to cater to them, because Japan is incredibly hierarchical. So it is male driven as well. There's a
Yeah.
lot of gender dynamics there. And I remember they were presenting everything that we were progressing with Otava. There's a couple of nuances that would be important in the Japanese market. And as I looked around the room and just the whole flow of multiple days of this, it was 100% male clinicians. The entire marketing and engineering team from the US was male, white male. There was a whole network of sales reps, Japanese sales reps and Japanese commercial partners were all male. VPs all the way up to the president of the organization was male, me, and then 2 women translators that were alternating. And the US team was bypassing them and just speaking at the Japanese surgeons, even though they were nodding but not understanding. And everything was presented with English slides. So it was just like massive miss on both inclusion across gender, also inclusion across culture as well. And I remember just forwarding emails afterwards of like, if we want Japanese female hand size to be included as an unmet need, because I've seen it, I've had clinicians talk to me, why are we not including them into these circles of power? Like these 12 men we've brought in who are at the top of their field are shaping what R&D in the US is developing on behalf of this market. And it's the Japan team's responsibility to elevate. There has to be one, like I was like, there has to be at least one female surgeon that is also top tier in this country. I can't believe that there's not one that we're not bringing into the circle, let alone 2 or half.
So this is very strong. Okay. And I had incredibly strong feelings about this. I pushed on the team a lot. I was very candid and blunt, which is not culturally acceptable in Japan. It's very passive aggressive. Because I really wanted to help the room see this reality. I escalated all the way up to the president of the company. Because in other team town halls, we're celebrating like, hey, we're hiring this many women in sales and in marketing. And I partnered with some of these wonderful individuals. But then in these specific labs with some of our most critical technology that's going to advance, to a global market in robotics. That circle of power was still 100% men. And while some could argue robotics actually make surgery more accessible to women because hand size is less of a factor, which is true, to not have their approach, their nuance, their thoughts present at the table is a miss. And I continued to hammer on this point with the team for 2.5 years of show me a female surgeon that we are actually platforming to represent Otava that we're bringing in as a KOL. And it never happened over the time that I was there. And if we don't do it, Medtronic or somebody else is who's a competitor. So this is an area where Japan is incredibly hierarchical. There's a lot of very strong gender dynamics. Like at happy hours with the company, like women are still pouring the drinks for men. Things like this occurs, even though Johnson & Johnson is still an American company. So there's definitely some crunching of culture that's occurring in those spaces. But as we continue to develop new technologies, we have to be aware of gender that's present. We have to be aware of race and global dynamics and how that affects the nuance of the ways that our technology is handled and leveraged as we scale globally. Just because you can get an insight from one context doesn't mean it translates to all contexts. It's just like when you have statistics. Do you know this? Here, well, it's my job to help you know this. Like when we have statistical analysis, right? There's this idea. This is like, I was going to say this is preschool statistics. It's not. I learned stats in high school. So let's say you have some data, right? Doesn't this data look great? Look at all that wonderful data that we measured. Let's say this is time and this is force for some stapler. An engineer might be like, whoa, look at this. We could draw some kind of correlation and this will be y equals mx plus b. It's just a normal line. But there's a way to do like a regression. I don't remember all the stats math right now, where you could basically look at the distance between all of these things. Talk to your local quality engineer. They know more than me on this. And you can basically see like how healthy is that fit. God, I think at R value, y'all are like, blasphemy, all this math is wrong. Math is happening here. Well, there's this idea that you see this beautiful fit from the data that's measured from here to here. What young engineers, myself included, will do is will be like, this is some really great data. I want to know what's going on over here because I want to know my range. Swoop. We just blow out the data into the unknown. Whereas if we found a way to sample that, how do we know it doesn't do this, right? That it's actually like the real curve looks like that, but we only measured it here. So a lot of times we will extrapolate data beyond what we've measured. It's a bad practice. And we do this within business as well, which is why if you think that this is just your US surgeon feedback and you haven't taken this thing out to Brazil, China, Japan, we can add EU as well. Although EU often but not always is similar to US. China and Japan are similar but not the same. South Korea typically follows Japan but not always, right? There's these relationships and norms. The problem is you can start to extrapolate data. And this is why you have to be very careful with how you do formative usability, early usability of your products, getting that market research to understand payer systems, price points, commercially, like your minimally viable product, and if it fits within a given market. And if you're only doing local innovation from here and driving it into the regions, which is the old way of doing it, you don't have a guarantee that the market will accept it. And that's a huge risk. So anyway, that's a little bit of market research for you. Let's keep rolling. I only got 10 more minutes. I don't think I can hit all these today.
I couldn't get headcount for the role was the first challenge with it. So I was this one person to save Japan was how it was structured. So by creating this vision program Pokeball, people could join the initiative at 5 to 10% FTE or full-time effort in addition to their core work. And then people started reallocating their time to 30, 40, 60% of the time.
Okay, this is cool stuff. I'm also realizing, did I even show this curve? Did I just talk about math and not show you math? That would be so embarrassing. I can't go back in time and check. Anyway, there's a line right here, and this is all the data, and we filled the line. but we don't know that the data is not out this way or this way. And then Brazil. I'm going to trust that I showed this curve. It's so nerdy if I talked about math and didn't even show you. Okay, so program Pokeball is pretty epic. So the idea was pretty simple. Okay, so this was my job. This is Joe. And this was US upstream R&D. And this is Japan downstream commercial. I used to have really cool slides that would show this, but I can't show you, so I do it as commercial. And then you had lots of partners. You had your VPs, you had R&D, like functions. You had global strategic marketing, you had business development, BD, you had front end, like people that are actually doing pipeline. And then you had sales, you had marketing, you had Japan, BD, business development, external partners, and you had surgeons, KOLs, key opinion leaders. And this job was structured where I was supposed to beat this. I had really great slides that showed all this. What I created with Program Pokeball was an ecosystem. My goal was to decenter it for me. This was me for 0 to 6 months. I had to get these connections off the ground. But then from 6 to, we'll say, 36 months, I brought everyone into the ecosystem so that they could interconnect with one another. And what was amazing about this was rather than having formal headcount where I needed 5 folks at 100% FTE, I had 32 folks from a wide range of function groups way out in here at 5 to 10, and I'm going to say 10 to 70, because I got certain people to reallocate their time, which gave me a much larger team. We had 10 projects running in parallel with a US and Japanese co-lead on these projects, and they were like mini startups within our company to kind of challenge or try to break our R&D processes and figure out how we reverse engineer what we're building towards to provide value. We found like huge clinical unmet needs in the thoracic space, developed AR and VR tech. It was awesome. So anyway, that was Program Pokeball. I could talk about that for a long time as well. Let's see if we could do maybe 3 more.
Does this span over into South Korea, China, and rest of APAC, or is it just Japan? And then you could provide clarity to that region.
All right, so that's going back on this view. So what I was saying is often this region, Japan, for instance, might feel left out from our innovation. They might believe that we're not responsive to their needs, which is often true. And there might be an unmet need in Japan that's only for Japan. And it costs a lot of money to develop a product, test it, get it through regulatory bodies. So it doesn't always make sense to develop a product for just a singular region. Sometimes you need multiple regions for it to be economical and have what's called an EMP, a high enough EMPV or net present value to invest in that technology. I don't have time to unpack EMPV right now. So what was great about having these insights stored is that you could see, is this thing just for Japan? Does it also touch China, South Korea, Brazil? Is this curve large enough and important enough to justify its own product that's different from the US? That's like the killer question. And if it's not, then you can tell surgeons in here, hey, we aren't going to be able to prioritize this in pipeline because we're developing these other technologies that go towards a global market. That way you have transparency. Right now we don't have transparency, so surgeons just feel ignored. And it takes too long to develop a product and get it into the region, which is a whole nother chat. And if you want to go deeper on this topic and see specifically what I built, if I pull up my lovely LinkedIn really quick, let's see. We go over to my pinned post. I'm going to show you a cool video you can check out on your own. Dang, 16K. I've been really active on LinkedIn. This is awesome. I hope I land a job. If you go to everything you need to know about me to do your homework, because some people like to read up on people, that was the whole lens. What you got to do is click on, I mean, this video is cool, it's 5 minutes, but click on this virtual portfolio of my work. I go through animations on exactly how I developed this platform and the value it created. So go and check that. Oh my gosh, I'm not showing you. check this out, the virtual portfolio. Super cool. I nerd out there. There's animations. It's way better than what I'm doing right now. All right, let's see if we could sneak one or two more in.
You're not going to get a 38 centimeter harmonic blade.
The reason 38 centimeters is funny is because we have a 36 centimeter blade. Japanese clinicians wanted a 38 specifically because for certain thoracic patients, the 23 is too short. The 36 is just almost long enough. They don't want to go up to a 45 or something like that. And to make another blade that specific length is so much development cost, we just can't do it. So that it's sitting down with those clinicians and helping them understand, hey, I know this is an unmet need, but there's just no way that one's coming for you, at least not from us and our product offering right now. And anytime you make an adjustment to blade length, there's a huge design impact to it. Blades, by the way, because people might be thinking about like scissors or something. The blade length is actually, if I rewind this video, the blade extends from here all that black blade titanium runs all the way through the shaft to here. This is one giant wave gauge. Should we nerd out on this first? Let's nerd out on. We'll finish on this because it's fun. And then, sorry, no second sips because I'm too busy. So when you're designing a blade, I drew this curve for co-ops all the time. I'm not going to reveal secrets though. There's patterns on this. I'm just going to explain some math. And those trained in the art understand it. This is a piezoelectronic disc. It has inherently locked polarity. It's awesome. All right, which means one side's positive, one side's negative. If we run a current across, I'm drawing this weird, but if we send like plus signals here and minus signals here, forces repel and it would cause it to squish. And then if we flip the polarity really fast, it would cause it to stretch. So basically you have this thing pulsing this way. This silly animation to help people understand where the wave like goes that way down the blade. Here, let's just watch it. Ooh, lies. Complete lies. That's not how it works. Let me show you how it works. And then I gotta go. So the way it works is you have a node right here. Node here, node here, a node here, and then you have your clamp arm over here on the blade. And you create a standing wave that goes through these nodes. And by the way, there's multiple nodes based on the blade. A standing wave reflects at resonance. It's a special wave. So you can make it with a slinky. If you take a slinky and start to increase the speed while another friend holds it, eventually you'll get it to make this like standing wave that looks like this. And then if you double it, you'll get it. It'll go from the fundamental frequency. You can get 2 nested in here, which is the second frequency. Then you can get, good heavens, 3. This is harmonic wave theory. It's awesome. We use FEA to tune these blades, but the way you can think about it from a math perspective is a mass spring damper. Let's go. So basically you have this grounded right here. This all lines up, okay? And you have a mass right here, a mass right here. You're like, what the heck is going on? I don't even know how to do this math, but I knew the PhDs that worked on it. So basically, a mass spring damper has a spring and a damper. You're like, what's a damper? A damper, you think about it like shocks on a car. It kind of sucks up energy. Actually, shoot, shocks are a spring. I don't know what a damper is. It's important. There's math there. But basically, the way it works is these masses in one phase, if we follow this top line, the mass might be moving this way, this mass moves that way, this mass moves that way, this mass moves that way. And then on the return path, this mass moves that way, this mass moves that way, this mass moves that way, this mass moves that way. And what happens is at these nodes, your circumference goes from this to this. So actually, it's a series of smashing waves that are kind of percussive, if you want to think about it. And at the nodes, you have high stress because your diameter is increasing and decreasing. But in these areas, it's like the mass is free flying back and forth. And at the very tip here at your antinode,
This is where you get the most displacement. We want to optimize for as much displacement as possible, so you have longer stroke, you cut more tissue. Low displacement blades, you don't get as much cut. All right. There's a lot. I spent years working on these. Okay, with a lot of really cool people. The testing, the end of, oh my god, I could talk about Harmonic for way too long, and there's things I can't talk about on TV. So anyway, that's all I got for Sunday Sips this week. I hope this is helpful. If you want to hang out with other cool nerds, we have a community on this platform called Skool that I can show you really fast. If we hop over to here, and then I got to go be a dad. If we go to Skool, I have something called the Big Brain Club where I help people with left brains. Whoops, that's the wrong community. That's the Piano Tribe, which is also a cool community. But I help people with left brains, which are your engineers and your global leaders. Right brains are your creatives and community builders. Whole brains are parents and entrepreneurs. And I provide them an assessment to get their life in the green so they can look at how undefined it is. They have a lot of unknown unknowns. How disorienting is it? Do they not know what their next best step looks like in their career or in entrepreneurship? And how isolating is it? Do they not have people around them that have seen the same level of success as them? So I give this assessment for free in the community so that we can collectively build the life we desire, living where we want, loving what we do, and being paid well for it. And that's all I got. If you want to be a guest on Sunday Sips, there'll be a link on how to fill out that waitlist as well. I got to go be a dad, so keep changing the world. Hopefully this was helpful. Got through half of it, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye, friends. You can sip on that.